My baby girl got married last week, and I'm reminded of how weddings are such a vivid illustration of a biblical truth, and I feel like I'd be remiss if I didn't talk about it. Jesus used lots of illustrations when he taught. I imagine there might be situations where he's walking along the road and he sees a mustard plant, and he reaches down and grabs it and picks it up. You say, "You see this scraggly mustard plant? I'm going to tell you about mustard seeds." Or he was sitting with his guys and he looks over to a farmer and says, "You see that farmer scattering seed? Well, that's like the kingdom of God." Jesus says, "You see the birds of the air and the grass of the field, how they're clothed? Are you not much more valued than these?" And Paul does the same thing when he writes his epistles. His list of illustrations are long, but one of those is a picture of a bride and groom, I believe, at a wedding, which is exactly what we see Paul saying in Ephesians chapter 5, verses 22 down to 33. He writes, "Wives, submit to your husbands as to the Lord. Husbands, love your wives just as Christ loved the church and gave himself up for her to make her holy and to present her to himself as the radiant church. In the same way, husbands ought to love their wives as their own bodies." I like to think that Paul had this young couple in mind at a wedding, and the groom is standing up front waiting for the bride to enter through the back door, and there she comes in with her wedding gown, and he sees her. He starts to well up with the emotions of love and maybe even tears that come upon his face at seeing his bride. And I look at the bride and I watch her face as she looks at the groom with that radiance of love on her face. And he says his vows to her. "I will swim in the ocean, I will climb any mountain, I am totally devoted to you, and I will give myself away for you." And the young bride totally believes him and trusts him. And she falls into his arms and she says, I give myself over to you to love me that greatly and that completely." And she says her vows, and in essence says, "Yes, my mission will be to come under your mission to love me that greatly and that completely. I will submit myself to your mission to love me with that self-sacrificing and giving love." Then the bombshell. Paul says, "This is a profound mystery, but I am talking about Christ and the church." And this picture of love happens in just about every wedding. You see the way they look at each other, the way they embrace for that first kiss. It's an object lesson of how much Christ loves you. He died for you. He gave himself away for you sacrificially. And all he wants from his bride, you and me, is to yield and come under his mission to love us so greatly and so completely. We swoon and we fall in his arms and we say, "Yes, Lord, thank you for loving me. Help me to trust you, to love me with that undying, everlasting, sacrificial, caring, and eternal love that you have for those who are his." In the words of Charles Wesley, in that deeply moving hymn, "Jesus, lover of my soul." Wow, how great the love of God is for us.